the length of Tim Cook's tenure at Apple, and uploading information to free services. This is Mac Voices. Today's Mac Voices is supported by MacVoices After Dark. What happens before the show starts and after we sign off? Informative, fun, and completely off-script conversations. That's what. MacVoices After Dark is an exclusive benefit for our Patreon subscribers. Sign up now at patreon.com/MacVoices. Another interesting, the Apple pieces just kept coming this week, which is kind of refreshing. Tim Cook's reign as Apple CEO has now lasted longer than Steve Jobs' entire tenure. I'm not sure I would have guessed that if someone hadn't looked it up or showed it to me. It just seemed like
I thought it happened a couple of years ago, so that was my surprise.
Yeah. Just given both Steve's first tenure and then when he came back, but I guess time flies. I just didn't realize that he'd been gone that long, or that Tim had been in that position that long. So something to pay attention to.
Now the question is, what's going to be Tim's successor? And we've talked about that here before, and I can tell you that those chess pieces on the table are going to be moving a lot between now and when Tim finally decides to go into retirement or act as chairman emeritus or something along those lines. But I don't think Tim is actually going to 100% leave the organization, but he may give up his CEO control and pass that on to someone else.
Yeah, that's going to be anybody's game, I think, both internally and it really wouldn't surprise me if they pulled in somebody from outside too. It would have to be just it's a perfect person, but I don't know that would be a bad thing.
That would really shock me.
Yeah. My counter to that is, as Beach showed, Apple is very, very difficult for somebody to come in from the outside to run an organization of that size. I'm not saying it can't be done, but it's really, really difficult to bring in an outsider. You got to have somebody who is really kind of inbred inside the culture, unless the culture's damaged and needs to change. But I don't think that's so much the case right now. One of the things that I find as I look at Apple is Apple has realized, and I think people forget this, Apple has realized that they have to reinvent themselves every, whatever the period is, every 5 years, 12 years, whatever the number is. And, they went from being an Apple II company to introducing the Mac and being that kind of a computer company. Then they went to the iPod, and how the iPod really dominated and changed the culture of Apple and the focus of Apple from being a computer company to being a consumer products company, and how that has evolved too. I think the thing that we're waiting for is what's going to be Apple's next big move. What's the next innovation? What's going to be the next what's the next iPhone or AirPod or whatever that thing is. So that's what I'm interested in seeing, what's going to happen there. I'm happy that Tim's stuck around this long. I think he's been the right guy at the right time. You look at their stock performance alone, and I talked about this last week, is that I'm sorry, but that's how we keep score. And I think Apple's done really, really well under Tim's leadership, and he's going to be a tough act to follow. I'll put it that way.
I think the board will probably try to headhunt someone from PepsiCo.
There is precedent for that.
It's worked. Yeah, that's worked out well for them in the past.
Yeah, how did that work? So
yeah, well, that's our Rip Van Winkle. That's 40 years ago, not 20, as per the original story. Marty, where are you sleeping?
Ooh, 40 years ago. That's frightening.
But anyway, my question to Webb on that, just thinking about the corporate change. So Apple is notable because it is a completely functionally oriented organization. They do not have different business units targeting towards different segments of customers. And I know from being within those type of organizations, there are internal problems. There's a little bit, of certainly staff duplication. Well, maybe there is staff duplication, or they're just broken out. But there you have, a bunch of prima donnas called VPs and GMs fighting each other for resources. Whereas right now it's one guy. It's Tim Cook. He makes all the decisions. So,
and Jobs did the same thing.
Yeah, and Jobs did the same. Absolutely. This Tim Cook inherited that. Do you think Apple needs to navigate that change in its culture? And if so, why or why not? And follow-up question: do you think they're able to do it successfully? I mean, your prediction on that, obviously.
Hey, my answer is it's too soon to tell. And I understand the question. Hell, I'm no Peter Drucker. I'm no management expert or guru. I read the same books as everyone else does, but I do think it's just interesting that how are they going to I use the word reinvent. How are they going to reinvent themselves next time? That's the part that I think is going to be fascinating. And is it going to come under Tim Cook's reign? I think it will. Or will it come under something else? Is AI the next reinvention? It hasn't proven to be so far. But we talked about that. They're going to fix that. Is that the next realm, or what's the next big thing? And that's what I'm interested in finding out. We talk about the Apple Vision Pro in here. And Chuck, I apologize. I'm talking way too much tonight.
No, not at all.
I am. So I think the Apple Vision Pro is a fascinating technology. And while I just had a couple of minutes with it and had some problems trying to use it, when I used Dave's when we were at MacStock, I really appreciated what the Apple Vision Pro is. I do view it as a Halo product, and it's something that they can grow into. I don't know if it's the next product. I could be wrong. It all depends on what the next chapter of that technology is. But I'm waiting to see how Apple reinvents itself. Thank you.
Joe in the chat room says Scott Forstall would be a good candidate.
Yeah.
So interesting comment, Joe, because Scott, was sort of unceremoniously, well, let's just say he unceremoniously left Apple.
Remind me, was he the guy who went to JCPenney?
No.
No. Okay, never mind.
No, that was what's his name? The Apple Store guy.
Yeah, he came from JCPenney to Apple. Ron Johnson, I think it was.
Yeah. No, he came from Target. He came from Target to Apple, and then he went to JCPenney to be CEO.
Yeah.
Look where that happened.
Yeah, where is he now?
They're about bankrupt.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember the name of Forstall's book, though, because I read it, and it was very interesting. I've heard a couple interviews with him. He is sharp. I don't know how he fits in with Apple's culture at this point in time. So whether he could make that transition or whether it would require remolding the culture more to his liking, which is always difficult in any company.
So question, does the panel think that, since 2011, 14 years under Tim Cook's leadership, basically they've expanded their product line into all sorts of, any device with screens, including, watch, that's a teeny tiny little screen. And they've had, different audio accessories, the different earbuds and speakers. Do you think going forward, we need somebody who has a different product ethos, going forward? And if you do, then I think I would agree that that type of vision might need to come from outside. And, it's going to be a difficult balancing act of how to integrate, a foreigner without the corporate antibodies coming out and mounting a defense and killing, like they did with the guy from the UK who headed up retail, who didn't fit and got extinguished in about 9 months.
Brian?
Yeah, I just think, whoever the next CEO is, I just hope it's somebody who really values the privacy aspect that Apple has really built on for a long time now, especially when, we talk about all these different companies and the way in which, so whether, different aspects of how they make their money versus how Apple makes its money.
Joe says Apple needs someone with an engineering background to innovate again. Tim's background is more manufacturing and supply chain management. Joe, you're right about the engineering background for Steve Jobs. I don't know though that with the size company that it is right now, that you need the engineer at the top. I think you need more of the business acumen. That's my opinion.
Well, I would debate you on that, Chuck, because I think they're basically flatlining, with their current product set. They need some brand new, product that can, grow and grow significantly. And I don't know if the current team has it in their skill set to do that. The only way we'll know is we'll have to see what happens over the next couple of years.
Marty, did you just say that Apple was flatlining?
Me? No.
Not Marty. I mean Mark.
I think so. I mean, and they eked out maybe a 10% growth this year, but compared to years past, and some of their and some of their internal product lines are down, and it's being made up by services. So yeah, I think I think that's it's not fatal, but they're certainly they're trending towards flatlining in terms of growth, and because they just don't have any new products.
Mark, the only we're going to have this debate, I guess. The only thing I agree with you that the engineering skill is needed. I'm not sure it's needed in the CEO's office. If that could be,
that's a fair point, Chuck. That can be debated, but I mean they do need somebody in my humble opinion, they need somebody who can conceive of something that is a big market beyond big screens, small screens, and over eye screens.
So this really has, and Marty, I'm getting to you, I promise. This really has lit a fire in the chat room. Joe says Apple. Well, no, I already said that. Excuse me. Barry says more than engineering, I think Apple needs a leader, not necessarily CEO, with design taste and the authority to infuse it across the product line. Brett says Apple's next CEO needs to understand that Apple's strength isn't one product line, but the entire ecosystem. They need to continue to develop all parts of the system to move forward. Really, really interesting points, guys. Thank you. Marty.
I would say to Brett, I agree with Brett, but the Department of Justice seems hell-bent, to try to smash it apart because they think it's unfair that Apple makes its products to work together really well.
Amen to that. Marty.
Yeah, I'm not sure I want Apple to turn into an appliance division. I like the idea. I mean, the car seems to have been dropped. The TV has, other than the device, an actual TV has seemed to have been dropped. And I think Mark is right, but I think Apple is also staying within its lane. And it's not trying to diversify too much to turn into a JCPenney's or turn into something that offers all sorts of appliances. The question is, what is going to be the next digital device or service that Apple could be getting into versus trying to figure out how to make another appliance for people to purchase?
So I have a lot of ideas about that, and we don't need to fill it here. Maybe we talk about it in our After Dark segment, or maybe Marty, you and I schedule our own Zoom meeting offline, because I think Apple short term they're just getting dumped on because that's what gets attention in the media. But I think they actually have a very strong position because what we were saying before, they've sold 3 billion iPhones. They have over 1 billion active users. Think about it. They are the on and off ramp. They are the user interface for all these AI services. And oh, by the way, they're doing things in the background, but I don't want to take this down a rat hole because it's Chuck's show, not mine.
Webb?
Let's decouple Apple as an organization for just a second. Just talk about who the CEO is, because it's a really dynamic position. Remember, you got to have some. In this case, there has to be some engineering understanding and appreciation. Absolutely, and I think that the Apple of 25 years ago is different than the Apple now. When Steve Jobs was there, and Steve Jobs was a master. But a CEO, he has to be the leader. He has to have a sense of community. He has to understand the world around him, or her. I mean the inclusive he. There's just a lot of things, and then there's the whole financial aspect of the organization that he or she is held accountable to. There's just a lot of things, and I think it's difficult to look at what Apple is doing today versus what they did 25 years ago when they had a computer and somebody said, "Hey, let's there are MP3 players out there, but we can make it better," and just how that all evolved. And I'm going back to the iPod, just. We're talking about the CEO needs to be an engineering visionary. A CEO has to have a lot of different. It's an octopus, if you will, and has to have a wide understanding of a lot of different things, and not just what we call the engineering or the product side. The other thing that I just want to close on. I was listening to Jason Snell this morning on his Upgrade podcast, and he said something today that I thought was interesting. As we look at the 1 point whatever billion iPhones out there, and then take that in relation to services. Remember, the services platform is very dependent on Macs too, but mainly the services platform is very dependent on the iPhone. Yes. And you can't look just, hey, services is doing great, and it is. There's no doubt about that. But there's this iPhone that has to go around it that really plays a big part of the success that services has. Services would not be services without the iPhone out there. So, thank you. Good night,
Brian.
Sorry. I do think they should have the business acumen. So I agree with the points that were made before. But I think there's a lot of power to just surrounding the right people in the right places. And, I tend to look at, I believe it was Webb that had brought up, both this week and last week about the importance of seeing the success of a company based on its stock prices. And when you look at Apple, stock prices today compared to when Steve Jobs was the CEO, it's amazing how much it's grown and how much influential it has continued to be, and the whole ecosystem that's around, and all of that, all those aspects. Even the aspect of the ecosystem would not have been possible if it wasn't for the quote unquote supply guy CEO putting into place the right people and trusting the right people and making those hard decisions to know sometimes even when a decision was made that was incorrect, to be able to know when to yank it away. Like, the idea of the car, and how much money was invested in that car, reportedly, and knowing when to say, you know what, no, we're not going to do it. It's throwing good money after bad. So I think that's important as well.
Jim, you want to throw your comment in? I thought that was a very interesting one.
Which one?
The fact, well, I'll quote you and then you can expand it on it. But Apple has never had a CEO that was an engineer.
Well, they haven't, have they? I can't think of one. Jobs was not an engineer.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I think we tend to think of Steve as being having an engineering background of some kind, which technically he did not. He and Woz, were sort of one person almost.
Well, I would,
Well,
I,
yeah,
I
but
would
yeah,
ask,
Woz was
I would, I,
Woz
I
was
would
an
ask
engineer, but
this, going back in history, they may not have had successful CEOs that were engineers, but wasn't Gil Emilio and the German guy Spindler weren't they engineers in the start of their careers?
I'm
And this is
not
really
really
arcane
sure.
Apple
But
stuff. I know.
they were so briefly on the scene that I don't think you could argue that they had other than one of them, and I guess it was Emilio that picked Jobs come back. I mean, that's other than that, he had neither one of them had any impact on the course of Apple.
Well,
But I
I did preface it saying that wasn't a successful CEOs because I think Spindler sort of maybe trended downwards, and I think Emilio's was he acquired Next and cleared the way for Jobs to regain
he
control.
acquired Next and exited the scene, which good.
Hey,
That
short
was
success for whatever it was 18
that
months.
was the most fantastic thing he could have done, as it turns out. But
Yeah.
it's sort of not really a CEO thing, really. It's just, I don't know what you call it. But I think my comment was more, I think, that what you were saying, Chuck, that some people think of, as if Steve Jobs was actually, designing hardware and writing software. Kind of like, Elon Musk designs the cars. Nope.
Right. Let's move on. Oh, and Brett, he said Spindler was the Pepsi guy, right? No, that was Scully.
No,
Scully.
that was not.
Scully was the Pepsi guy.
Yeah.
I debated whether I should put this next one in the public service announcements or not, but I don't want to rain too much on the parade. But this has, I think, a couple of different angles to come at. There's a free Adobe tool out there that offers quote unquote Photoshop strength background removal. This is an article from Fast Company, and I looked at this, and yes, it does. It does a great job of removing the backgrounds or isolating a piece of a photo or an item on a photo. The reason, though, that I said I thought it should be maybe a PSA is that in order to gain access to this, you have to have an Adobe account or you have to give them your email address. Then you can use it, and you can use it over and over, but now they've got your email address. And you are uploading your photo to Adobe. And so that's something I just want everyone to understand, very clearly, that when you're using some of these online services that say, send us this and we'll do this to it or that to it, that you're sending them the file. And you don't know what else they might be doing with it. Now, it's Adobe, and I would like to think that they're about as reputable as you can get and would not abuse anything like this. But just be aware. That's all. So let's see. Who's here first here? Mark?
Yes. So I saw this. I was very interested in it. And as you said, I mean, going into it, I was thinking, well, why would they be offering this for free? And I figure, okay, let me check their terms of service. And it was pages and pages of impenetrable legalese. I'm sure somewhere in the middle it says, you grant us rights to use this photo to train our AI models, but it's probably expressed in legalese and not something that simple. The other thing, yes, they wanted an email address. So if you have an Apple Mail, use an Apple temporary email address, hide my email address. It's a throwaway, because in there at the bottom, they insist that you agree that they'll to receive commercial emails and other things that they send to you. So yeah, it's typical Adobe scummy customer relationship hostile practices. I tried the tool with a whole bunch of images, including a couple of the ones that were in the articles that were linked today. On that, it seems to work. The interface sucks. There is no. there's no way to upload another image, so go back to the article, open the thing up again. And then I realized, oh, if I click back in the browser, I can upload another image. So, they didn't engineer it to be friendly for users because, that might create a lot of high volume stuff, but the tool works really, really well. And I see it as, something that they launched and they probably decided this is a great way to get image data that we can use to train our AI models. And it's a great way that we can incite, and expand and try to trap, additional people into subscribing for our services. And we've talked before about the hell Adobe puts people through and how difficult they make it to cancel, and how there was under the last couple months of the Biden administration, there was a action filed against them from the Department of Justice Department. So I still think they're pond scum because of how difficult they make canceling their services are. But their tools are pretty good, and this one works pretty well. And with that, back to you, Chuck.
The other spin though I had on this, Mark, is that there are a lot. I can think of at least 3 or 4 that I've played with. Background removal tools.
Yes.
That are out there. And I start to wonder if when Photoshop started doing this, I mean, it was like magic. Oh my God. Now, sometimes I do it by accident on my iPhone. I lift people out of a photo. And I just wonder if that particular feature has no significant value or doesn't add value to Photoshop any longer. And to make no mistake, Photoshop is an amazing program and it does some amazing things. But I wonder if that particular feature is one they felt like they could put out on the web as a one-trick pony, as something to draw people in and not really lose anybody from subscribing to Photoshop.
I agree with everything you've said.
Okay,
Yeah.
That's good.
It's becoming commodity technology. It's been available in Google for years, on the Google phones. Apple caught up, and so it's widely available. And now there's a free web version if you want to pay for it with your email and exposure to Adobe's marketing.
Yeah. Eric, you've been quiet tonight. Any thoughts on this, especially from a university standpoint?
Anything where you take content and upload it to a website is a no on the university side of things, because there's no control over it. But as you said, there are lots of ways to accomplish the same task without doing that. And most of the universities have a license for Photoshop for the people who need it. And then it's done locally on machine.
Yeah. Anybody else wanting this?
Just on what Eric said, I work at a university too, and this might work well that might be true for faculty, but I can see a lot of students being sucked into this process to be able to use it for photo editing, and in turn, turning over some of their personal information as a quid pro quo.
Same with business. Same with business. You don't want to be uploading those, especially if it's company content to sites like this. If it's photo that's something that really shouldn't be shared, or if it's document for that matter, I wouldn't trust it. And sometimes the companies block them. You can't even do it.
Yeah. Jim, you wanted to expand on something we talked about previously, and then we'll move on to another one. But what did you have in mind?
I just did a little research on Spindler and Emilio, and I thought it was pretty interesting. You're right. They both had technical backgrounds and early in their careers, quite technical, actually, although neither one of them had been doing anything technical for a long time before they became CEO. One of the things that really surprised me that I didn't realize was that Spindler joined Apple in 1980 and was there, for 13 years before he became CEO. I didn't realize that. I guess I thought he came in from outside. But it doesn't look like he did anything technical at all during those 13 years. His technical stuff was much earlier than that.
Jim, am I wrong? Did Emilio have a PhD or am I misremembering?
Yes, he had a PhD in physics, and he was a researcher at Bell Labs, and he worked on charge coupled devices, which is image sensors, and cameras, in around 1970. So he did super technical stuff in the late 60s, early 70s, but it sounds like by, mid 1970s, he was very much on a management track. And,
I think you went to National Semiconductor.
Semi-national, yes, National Semi.
That was pretty late. That was 1991. So he was at Rockwell. He was at Fairchild, and then at Rockwell, was president of Rockwell. I guess that was the semiconductor division of Rockwell. It says, and and I guess Spindler was CEO for 3 years. So that was longer than I thought, but I don't remember much of anything that he did. Although maybe he was the one that did the clones. Did he do that? He must have been. And then Emilio was. I think he was there for only maybe a year. So basically, the one thing he did was bring on Next and leave. So he's really the only outside CEO that Apple's had.
Thank you for that clarification, Jim. That's interesting.
Didn't Spindler come from the European side of Apple? Apple Europe.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But Markula hired him in 1980 in the Apple European office. He eventually became president of Apple Europe and then president of Apple International.
So what does this show us? You had Spindler, who came from Apple, had been there for a long time, and he took the CEO thing and didn't do it real well. Then you brought Emilio in from outside to run the organization. He didn't do well either.
Yeah,
it's hard to fill a job. Is my point.
We don't have Apple right now without Emilio, right?
Okay,
He created.
Yeah,
I get your point.
Apple, as we know it today, Spindler is sort of like, okay, on the one hand, he joined Apple in 1980, but I think you could argue that he was sort of an outsider because his whole career at Apple was on the international side. So he wasn't an insider in Cupertino.
No, but he was familiar with Apple's culture. I mean, you can't be at a company for 13 years.
Again, I would say I'd be careful on that because the Cupertino culture is not the culture of Apple and the sales organizations in Europe or international.
Yeah, I wonder about that too.
Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.